the Selby's live cast. If you happen to be watching it live, of course, on YouTube, thank you for being here. Guardians win 7-4 on opening day. So get all the jokes in, Zach. They're on pace for 162-0, and Kyle Manzardo is well on his way to his first MVP season. It wasn't
Multiply all
opening
those numbers by 162. Goodness.
It wasn't just opening day. It was welcome to the Kyle Manzardo breakout party. What a performance and a fun game. Fun game for the opener as Cleveland takes the opener in KC 7-4.
Yeah, I feel like the thing that makes opening day, one of the things that makes it special is, there's just so many games, 162 of them. It's hard to remember what happened on June 23rd, 2014. David Murphy hit a walk-off home run, by the way. But no, I'm kidding. Don't look that up. Although if he did, that would be wild. But opening day, you remember. Not all of them, but you remember certain ones. You remember the ones that went 16 innings. You remember the ones where you couldn't feel your fingers or your toes because it was so cold in Cleveland. And you remember ones like this. I mean, this was wild. There's a lot of twists and turns, and it kind of just felt like we just all picked up where we left off last year, didn't it? Didn't that feel like 2024 in so many ways?
A little bit, in that we saw the tail end of the Kyle Manzardo breaking out party in the postseason, right? And you were certainly amped for him to get to the plate. Kansas City apparently learned no lessons in the postseason. They thought this is just a guy that shouldn't even be starting against the lefty. We've got all the matchups we want. And yet here he is delivering the big base hits. Then you have, I know, the Debbie Downer here, Emmanuel Clase blowing a game, in which leads to extra innings. The man that was signed and was kind of an afterthought. And I said, hey, you wait a second here. When it comes time this summer, you're going to be thankful you have Paul Sewald. I didn't have March 27th on the bingo card to be thankful for Paul Sewald. But yeah, you're right. Kind of some late game enthusiastic comebacks and a little bit of that feeling of the team is never out of it, starting down 3-0. How about the fact that the man that was supposed to start here didn't end up starting the game? Yeah,
big storyline.
A lot of things happening here.
Yeah. I mean, that's what kind of made it 2024, like that sort of vibe, is that you didn't get what you expected to get from your starting pitching because you didn't have who you expected to have on the mound. And it didn't matter,
Never.
And Ben Lively is the perfect person for that assignment. They called him on Wednesday morning. He was still in Arizona. He was going to meet the team later on and pitch early next week. And so just as a tune-up, he stayed in Arizona. He was going to face some minor league hitters in a game. And they called him, and Carl Willis is like, hey, don't, you're not throwing in that game today. Like, we need you to hop on a flight. We're not sure if Tanner can pitch. And like anybody else, I don't know. I was like trying to put myself in his shoes. I wouldn't sleep that night. I would just be peeing down my leg for 24 hours. And you know what Lively's reply was to Carl? He's like, all right, sounds good. And he hops on a plane.
That's ridiculous.
And he still doesn't know if he's the starter when he goes to sleep Wednesday night. And Vogt calls him and he's like, hey, so here's the plan. Like, we're going to see how Tanner feels when he wakes up. And like, you might pitch, like, you'll probably pitch, but I can't guarantee it. And he's like, all right, he's like, prepare as if you're going to pitch. And he just goes, yeah, I always do. Okay. And I asked Lively, I was like, if you're 33, you've been around, you've had successes and failures and so much experience. I was like, how would 23-year-old Ben Lively have handled this? And he's like, yeah, I'd be way too fired up and it would not go well. So I think that's just, it was the perfect guy for that. Like, I feel like every time, I know how this goes. Anytime I tweet something or something happens and all the replies like, here it goes, they're going to be 0-1 here. Like, I can guarantee that the opposite is going to happen. That's how it went all of last season. And it seems, again, like Lively on the mound instead of Bybee, down 3-0 against Cole Reagans. And of course they win. Ho hum.
Yeah, uniquely equipped to handle the moment. Somehow I feel like he is. But also, it's sort of evident in how we feel about Ben Lively. He's oftentimes just this afterthought, and he was really legitimately, he saved their bacon last year. They don't make the postseason without Lively really settling down the pitching staff. And we don't really ever give him the credit for it because it always felt like, ooh, smoke and mirrors here, getting that done. Not really supposed to be here on the mound for this team. And even when you got down to the postseason, the team didn't give him the opportunity to really start in
Yeah.
those games. So they kind of told us that also they had their concerns about him doing this long term. But yet here he is again when they needed somebody to step up and save the bacon. Here was Lively. So tons of credit for him for being able to do that.
He was a microcosm of the entire team last year, right? Where it's like May and they're, I don't know, 36 and 17 or something, and we're like, you know what? Why don't we just stop trying to make sense of this? It doesn't add up. You don't have Bieber. McKenzie's been brutal. Allen's been brutal. Williams isn't pitching. The offense is just okay. Like, and they're 36 and 17. But you know what? We don't have to sit here and analyze this as if it makes sense. It doesn't have to make sense. And with Lively, it's like he's throwing 89. Like his command is solid, but they can't hit this. But it doesn't have to make sense because he was so consistent all year. So at some point, you just chalk it up to like, we know nothing and just it is what it is.
And it total Lively outing, by the way. Because yes, he gives up the 3-run home run that makes it not seem that impressive,
Yeah,
but
the stat line's not sexy, even though
right. But
we all
still,
agree he did a good job.
right. How often would you take 5 innings, 3 runs from the guy that's supposed to be near the back of your rotation?
Yeah, if I told you he made one mistake and it came after a ball that Quan thought he could get to, and it came after Bobby Witt, who's probably one of 2 players in the league who could beat out that sharp grounder to shortstop, like it happens, right? Like it's so
Yeah, it's opening day. It's opening day for everybody. There's miscommunication between Naylor and Santana. And then the outfield, you got Thomas and Quan. Okay, we're getting all the details ironed out, but still, all teams are dealing with this. And the most important thing, what the Guardians did so consistently last year is they would take a body blow. In this case, how much is your opening day starter couldn't pitch because he was sick? Okay, there are much worse things that could happen here in the grand
what do you
scheme
think
of
he
things.
ate?
I don't know. And then, of
I
course,
kind of
the
need to
Discord.
know before the off day before I
I mean, you're in Kansas City. Don't want to
Yeah.
also stumble upon the wrong thing. I can tell you what not to eat in Toronto, but not Kansas City. We were playing. Imagine this is the pro wrestling game in Discord, and this would be Lively would be suspect number 1 because he took Bybee's spot, and so then at SummerSlam, Bybee will come back and point the finger at Lively. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it won't.
Who's Austin Hedges in this scenario?
Al Snow. I really don't know.
That's perfect.
Thank you to Paul, who's here. Derek's here. Paul's here. B is here. Been throwing your comments up on the screen. Greg, unindoctrinated, wanted to know the odds of Seawald getting the save on opening day. What would you put those odds at?
500 to 1.
I'll take credit for it. I had him in my fantasy, our Selby's Godcast fantasy league. One of my last draft picks was Seawald, mostly because we had 30 seconds on the clock and I was a little bit panicked. So I know that name. I'm taking him. And then last minute, I decided to start him today. I'm chasing saves already this year, and one of them came from Paul Seawald. Imagine that.
A few people said that we forgot about somebody. Did we forget about somebody?
Who could we have forgotten about?
I wasn't sure. I went back and looked again, and then like unless it was Hedges that they were referring to, I don't know.
In regard to what?
That someone we just completely omitted, didn't even mention on the War Draft pod.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'll have to wait as the season unfolds to see who is accumulating war that
I
we
mean, you're
completely
saying
neglected.
you're bringing up the wrestling scenario here, but you took Bybee and I have Lively.
Yeah, but you had the pick, and then you told me for 5 minutes why Lively was a bad pick, yet you were doing it anyway.
Who's
So
to
can
say
you
that I
really
didn't put laxatives in Bybee's burnt ends?
You can keep an eye on you. Oh, I mean, really, I know the lineup, how this is being put together, was a big conversation point to begin this game, because you saw Quan and then Ramirez, and we've been so accustomed to Ramirez in the 3 spot. Even my wife said, "Isn't Jose usually hitting in the 3 spot? Why is he hitting in the 2nd spot?" I said, "Because
She's
that's where you
always complaining about lineup construction.
that's where you put your best hitter." But we saw a little bit of a glimpse of that today, and of course, Jose 0 for 4 with an RBI. But when it's more the rest of the lineup, how it looks when Ramirez is in that 2 spot. And today, I think we get a glimpse of how this is going to come together against lefties, at least initially. With Lane Thomas being the 3 spot guy against the lefty, I would imagine Manzardo just flips with him against the righty. So then you get Juan Ramirez and Manzardo, which makes so much sense when you got lefty split,
Mm-hmm.
lefty, and then switch hitter at the 2 spot and the 4 spot. That would seem to make so much sense. And it worked out sort of in their favor, even though Kansas City was lining it up to try to bring in the lefty to neutralize Manzardo today.
So to me, a huge, huge component to how this season will go is that middle section, right? Like 3 through 6. I think we all believe Juan Ramirez is a great 1-2. And 7, 8, 9, you're just gonna, you hope to get something, but I guess my expectations would not be crazy high with whoever it is, Arias, Naylor, Rocchio, and maybe the second base spot changes over time. Some days Hedges will be in there. So I'm looking at 3 through 6, and can you get enough so that any deficiencies at the bottom aren't that big of a deal, and so that you're driving in Juan Ramirez. So there are a few questions here. One, can Lane Thomas be serviceable enough against righties? Can Carlos Santana prove there's more in the tank? I feel a lot better with the Nolan Jones, John Kenzie, Noel pairing and the ceiling there than I think I did with Will Brennan. Just from the standpoint of another spot in the lineup where there's the threat of power or extra bases or walks, where like that's not really Brennan's game. And then a big one, and maybe the one that can make the biggest difference here, is Manzardo proving he's a dude 150 times, right? Like not if he's a good hitter against righties and he's going to DH some, like that's fine. That's good. But like if he's a guy who you want in the lineup,
Yep.
who other teams fear, lefty or righty every single day. I mean, he had a double, triple, and home run today, all against left-handed pitching. Like that's enormous. And I think I mentioned it to him after the game. I was like, a lot of times we see hitters treated the way you were last year, where you're kind of shielded against tough lefties, and it's you have to prove that you can handle them. And he's like, look, I've hit lefties my whole life. I hit them in the minors, I hit them in college. So he wants to take the opportunity and prove he can do it. I think it's just a big step that he was in the lineup first. And then, you see teams like intentionally walking Santana to get to him. And I think that's a great sign. Like if he can be that hitter, Stephen Kwan said after the game, he can be the anchor of our lineup. That's high praise. There are some anchors in this line, like Kwan and Ramirez are anchors of the lineup. That's, to throw Manzardo in there, I think would make a huge difference and just lengthen that lineup. So, if you get past Ramirez and Kwan, you're not looking at your scorebook saying, oh, it's going to be another couple innings before there's a rally here.
Right. Right. Didn't feel like that today. I mean, they had I felt like good at bats throughout the game. I mean, of course, you're facing a good pitcher, but I felt like from the very first inning on, they were making it tough. They had the swinging bunt right out of the gates. Of course, Quan. Last year he tried to start it right with a sacrifice or with a bunt base hit, dragging it, popped it up in the air, didn't go anywhere. This year he swung away and hit it exactly where he wanted to hit it last year. Just felt like Guard's ball was right back at the beginning, and then you get a bloop hit to center field. But they at least made it tough from the very jump against a good pitcher who, yes, settled in. He's going to do that, but you had to have Kansas City questioning when we're going to go to the bullpen. And from top to bottom, as you're saying, it didn't feel like, okay, once you got past the 6 spot, you're going to cruise through here. I mean, everybody kind of contributed a little bit and at least had made their presence felt from top to bottom in the lineup, but you're going to need that the entire season.
Yeah, I think you just want. I think you said it. Reagans isn't throwing 110 pitches today, so can you work counts? I think this lineup can do that well. We know Kwan and Ramirez have such a good handle of the strike zone, and they're gonna. you got so giddy when you saw that that new stat was coming out soon of pestering opposing pitchers, and those two
Yeah.
guys ranked 1 and 2, and now they're hitting
Yes.
next to each other in the top of the order. But we know like Manzardo historically has had really good eye at the plate. Santana historically has had a really good eye at the plate. Um, Rocchio had a great walk rate last year. Nolan Jones has had an elite walk rate as a major leaguer. So there are enough people in this lineup who can just just annoy pitchers. I don't know. And you're right. Like that's Guardians baseball, right? It's they aren't necessarily, maybe they'll hit for more power this year than we're used to, just with Noel and Jones in there more, and Manzardo up here. Maybe not more than used to since they lose Naylor, but um, I think there are more people who can do it. Even Jonathan Rodriguez on the roster, but there's there is still that foundation, right? Like even if it's like, okay, well we can walk more, we can hit home runs and power, but then you see Quan start the season like that, and it's like, yep, they're not losing their identity here. Like
Not no. Yeah.
this is still what they do best.
I mean, still some swing and miss in this lineup with Noel in there. I mean, Arias is a guy you can certainly get swing and miss from.
You just want
But
balance.
right, right. And as we've talked about before, I like a lineup that has a little differentiation in the skill, not just also handedness too, because I think you want to have a pitcher constantly adjusting his game plan. You don't want him settling in. I only have to face one sort of hitter that hits from one side, and so I can focus on these pitches to attack that hitter. No, I want him to constantly have to adjust hitter to hitter, inning to inning, and just make it more difficult. Now, if all the hitters are the same but they're all fantastic, okay. But I'm talking about in the realm of what is real, and I like guys that just do things a little bit differently throughout the lineup, so you're not, especially when you have a guy like Noel who obviously strikes out with the bases loaded in the first inning. But we also know that there are going to be games where a guy like that hasn't done anything for 3 days, and then changes the one game with one swing, and that's really all you needed him to do.
Also, like, are you supposed to throw a lefty at this team still, or do you want a righty?
Yeah, you're
Because that's the other
right.
thing. If Manzardo can hit lefties, and a righty starts the game, and they stack it, Quan Ramirez, Manzardo, Santana. You can't when a lefty reliever comes in, like you don't want him facing those guys. If like Quan can, it doesn't matter if it's a lefty or righty. That ambidextrous pitcher on the Mariners, some alien from
Amphibious.
Jupiter. I mean, like it does not matter who's on the mound for him. It doesn't matter who's on the mound for Ramirez. Obviously, Santana has better splits in recent years against lefties, and if Manzardo can hit lefties now, then like again, like
Yeah.
there's a path to being a more formidable lineup, a deeper lineup, and I think what you're getting at, just a more versatile lineup.
Now they also have to prove the thing that we were questioning: can you hit righties?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the handedness you're more often going to face, and I hope that that's remedied
Not
some
today.
by bringing in Nolan Jones,
Right.
because then you take Noel out, you put Jones in, and you just hopefully get whatever he was bringing against the lefty from the other side, and hopefully that still provides the same balance. And in some ways, they're a similar sort of hitter. Noel doesn't have Nolan Jones's eye or on base percentage potential, but there's still guys you can't make mistakes to, potentially hitting in that 5, 6, 7 slot in this lineup. That to me, it's weird how that trade, when it first happened, I was like, what? And it wasn't even a confusion like that. I don't believe in Nolan Jones, or I don't think he could be formidable. It just was so weird. Came out of left field for them to be trading back for him. But when you
No,
really
he plays right field.
but when you really thought about it, I just felt like it unlocked so much about the rest of this roster, just in the way that when he's at his best, it enables everyone else to really bring more of what they do best to the table to help in those situations. Like you're talking about it, even when they have a lefty that runs through the lineup. Like the one guy right now that maybe you would be, okay, we definitely have to have a lefty for, Bo Naylor's spot in the lineup. But if you have enough right-handed sticks on the bench now, maybe you can even use Noel or Rodriguez as a pinch hitter in those spots to help lengthen out the lineup late in the game. I just feel like the roster, compared to, especially when they start the year, how many times have they started the year with a roster that didn't feel complete? And I'm not saying that,
Mabry's freaking Veloria.
but this year feels more complete compared to
Yeah.
past years. It's not a high bar, but it feels more complete compared to past years.
Yeah, and it's weird how just the Jones for Freeman swap also made me feel a lot better about the lineup. Part of it, and I don't want to just rag on Will Brennan, who like is a competent hitter against righties. And maybe there was a little bit more to unlock, but I just felt like the ceiling was limited. Whereas Jones, I'm like, I don't know, this guy could hit 30 home runs and just steal 25 bases and just have 40 outfield assists. I don't know, like, or he could completely flame out. Like everything's on the table there, but I'm more intrigued to find out what he could actually produce than with Brennan, where it was like, I don't know, that do you want him hitting like sixth in your lineup? Maybe fifth? I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
not really. It's not
No.
optimized the best way that way. And a lot of this is, I mean, Nolan Jones has to prove he can hit still. He's healthy, that the confidence wasn't shaken, all that it'll be answered. But right now, I'm super excited to see it play out. Linda's here. Thank you for being here, Linda. Wants to know Manzardo's nickname, Manzo or Zardo. I just think yes is the answer there. But unindoctrinated, I've been sitting on this one. So he brings up that only 2 other players in MLB history have ever had opening day home run triple double.
I have the names.
Okay, so do I. I was going to ask you if you knew what they are, but now you've ruined the bit. So
Well,
go
I
ahead and
got
do
the
it.
stat from the PR team, and I just skimmed it. I see it now. Hasn't happened in 52 years.
1973, Don Baylor would be one, and then Detroit's G or Gee Walker. I'm not sure. 1937, a little before my time. Also, a little before the time of Carlos Santana, who proved he could still go first to all the way to home. I've never cheered on a 39-year-old harder in my whole life. I felt like I was living vicariously through that man as he was going first to home.
Yeah, I feel like he and Manzardo did the most running today, maybe,
How?
including Santana running into Bo Naylor.
Bob Hooper, I can say I lived to see a Kyle Manzardo stand-up triple. It wasn't pretty, but
Manzardo said,
got the job done.
yeah, Manzardo said he's left too many bases out there over the years, like where he should have had a double, but he's not fast enough, so it was a single, things like that. So he's trying to compensate for it now, I guess. Um, yeah, I think the big thing you wonder, like, I've no doubt this team. Think about how it's evolved the lineup since 22. Remember 22? It was like best case scenario for 7 hitters in the lineup was a single, and then they had to go first to third every time, and hit wacky choppers on the infield that result in everybody running around the bases. And now there's just like extra base potential. Can't you just like envision a ton of doubles from Manzardo and Santana and Ramirez and Thomas and even Kwan? Kwan had that double there in the 10th inning.
And it's a
So
perfect ballpark for that, too.
100%.
Going to have a chance to run around.
Well,
like
I said
crazy.
to John. I was talking to John Kensey Noel this morning, and I was saying we were reminiscing about remember his home run here last year, where there was controversy on whether it was fair or foul, but it was the game winner, and he was saying I was like, "Do you like this ballpark?" And he's like, "Well, everyone says it's too big," and he was basically like, "But when you're me, like, there's no such thing, like, there's no ballpark." But he did say he's like, I guess maybe I could try to hit some more bloops. And I was like, do you hit bloops? I don't, have we ever seen you hit a bloop? He's like, I love bloops. I was like, okay, well,
But see, he has a good chance for him. You know why? Because he takes such vicious, huge cuts. So imagine being an outfielder. You're standing back there.
you're standing in the third row of the seats.
Not only that, you're playing deep, but also when he swings, you're thinking, holy
Yeah.
And then you pause for a minute before you realize, oh, he barely caught that off the end of the bat and it's going to bloop 30 feet in front of me.
Yeah, this is the ballpark to do it. It's just like you watch the outfielders run, and it almost seems like they're in slow motion just because there's so much ground to cover.
Yeah. Jake brings up that Clase blew the game but then got the win.
What a great stat.
That's why I always cite win-loss record, especially for a reliever. Now, what are you thinking as you're watching Clase? Immediately he gives up the double. It's also 100 miles per hour, several inches off the plate. Now,
Yeah.
it's also a left-handed bat where you probably don't want to put it there. I still don't. It isn't off the plate, but that's where any lefty hitter is going to be looking for it, and they're going to be trying to pull it down the line. So it still is not great command. But as I'm watching this outing, I'm realizing it still is Emmanuel Clase because he doesn't miss bats. It still only takes like one legitimate base hit for then things to look like they're unraveling.
Can I take a rain check? Can I I want to see more of him
No, I
because
need all final decisions on everybody one game.
everyone's gonna just say, well, it's here we go. He's still the same Class A from October. Um, I didn't like that double to start things. I didn't think that was I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I just thought tip your cap to the hitter in that scenario.
Yeah, I don't think that's where he wanted it
Yeah,
necessarily, but
and
it still is not
Jose,
the most awful pitch I've ever seen.
right, and then a Jose error, and you're thinking, okay, is this the 2023 Class A where he wasn't as sharp, and also the defense behind him, and weird things happening? That's just how every outing went for him that year. I need to see more. I mean, it was nice. I feel like we've seen him at this time of year, sometimes throwing 97, 98. Nice to see him hitting 100. Um, I don't know. It was a weird day. I mean, Cade Smith looked like peak Cade Smith already. Tim Herron looked really good. Gaddis, what a Houdini act there.
How about that? We're not even talking about any of this if Kansas City
Right.
didn't firmly plant their heads right up back up their butts.
Also, how
What are you
about
doing?
and then for Gaddis to come back and strike out to lock in and strike out Bobby Witt Jr. I thought was really impressive.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're right. And then Seawald gets the save, of course, as we all saw the script.
But you know what? That's a funny thing to say, but that's why they brought him in because I think
100%.
they envisioned we can't run Cade Smith, Tim Herron, Hunter Gaddis, and Emmanuel Clase out there 85 times. We can't do that. So in today's outing, of course, it just lines up where, okay, he's the next guy in line. He has experience closing. It's an easy choice. He's the next one that's coming into that game. But it's also a case where if Clase's gone 2 in a row and you're setting up for a save, why not bring in Seawald? Why not let him be the guy that takes
Right.
that ball and take some off of all of these other pitchers because you can't keep pitching them as much as they have.
So last year, obviously, Cade Smith had to work his way into the circle of trust, and it helps when your first career outing you go 2 scoreless and strike out 5, as he did in Oakland. But it was the middle of the season before he's really pitching in high leverage, and obviously by the end of the season he's only facing the best hitters. And now you have that from day one, and I want to keep track of how many times does he pitch when it's the bottom of the order? How many times does he pitch when the team's down 5 runs? I feel like this guy 70 times this season is going to be facing the best hitters on the other team. He's going to be facing Bobby Witt and Aaron Judge and Riley Green and every team's best hitters every single time. He's never going to be able to breathe. But obviously, if you pigeonhole him into a specific inning, that's not the case. But it was just it was perfect. They got their 5 from Ben Lively, and then there's Cade Smith to face the top of the order. That's
Right
how you
back
draw
in
it
the
up.
it's back in the postseason. Like this
Yeah.
could have been if the Royals had beat the Yankees. This just could have been the championship series. I mean, that's kind of how it felt. And of course, we're planning on coming back. By the way, for those of you that are Patreon supporters, hi, thank you for being here. If you are a Patreon supporter, patreon.com/Selby's Godcast is where you get access to the Discord. That's one. But we're also coming back tomorrow morning, and we'll have more fun. Obviously, we're playing it up a little bit, having some fun, as we should. Everyone should enjoy a good opening day victory. We'll come back with more, I don't know, more level heads. Do you think we'll be more level headed or less level headed after we have 12 hours to digest this?
I think we will just extrapolate everything out to 162 games and assume that's how this is going to go.
MVPs. We're gonna have to figure this out. I mean, we already have Sybe, but now he's he's unable to pitch. So what we got to come up with something in the meantime. So what's the MVP Zardo for that?
I don't know. There's not really a. Can I tell you what Stephen Kwan said about him?
I would love to know.
Because tell me if this describes an MVP. He's a sick so he was talking about how he's such a professional hitter and all this. And I said, well, what does the mustache do for that? Does it make him seem even more professional of a hitter than he is? And he said, yeah, he's like a '60s kind of hitter, old school, no swag, leg pump. He's awesome. He's what we need.
I love how self-aware he is in his interviews. So he's with Andre after the game. I know you're shuffling down to go do post game, but he's on TV with Andre, and they're talking.
Was anyone able to see it?
Yes. I don't. It was fine for me on Spectrum. I don't know what issues people were having. I'm sorry if they were. Hopefully they're rectified. But so he's talking to him after the game, and he's talking about his approach. And what I love about Manzardo is he gets about 80% of the way through the canned, you've heard it a million times answer. And then by the end, just a little bit of that comes out in him, just a little laid back. And it takes over by the end of the answer. And so he's going through, he says, well, I'm just trying to look at the good pitches and look for what I can drive. And I'm trying to use middle of the field. And then like he gets 80% of the way through the canned answer and he goes, but yet I'm pulling on everything and yanking everything down the line. And his demeanor, I love his post-game interviews, not because he offers something that's like super insightful, but it's just because I don't know, he's so organically him. It just feels he just reflects who he really is, which seems to be a guy that really cares about his craft, really knows a lot about his craft, but also is very laid back in his approach. And I felt like compared to when we saw him first come up last year, him having the postseason success and then having a day like today, he looked like he's been doing this for 10 years today on that field.
He's very, he loves to use the word chill. He is very chill. I think he's relaxed. I think he's comfortable and confident too. I think last year you didn't see that personality because he was trying to figure out how he fit in and if he could cut it in the major leagues. I mean, he believed he could, but he didn't have proof yet. So that's not a question anymore. And you can tell. And I just remember talking to him in spring training, and it's the same thing you said. It's like he says all the right things about just working hard on my swing and blah blah. And then he's just like, I don't know, I'm just chill,
just vibing.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the
it.
key. If we all just chilled and vibed, we'd all be successful.
Yeah, I'm going to tell that to my anxiety next time. Well, thank you for being here, everybody. As we said, we'll be back tomorrow morning. So if you're a Patreon supporter, you get that episode delivered to your inbox. We will be back for that. Patreon.com/Salbia'sGodcast. Thank you for being here on our live stream. We'll try to mix in a few more of these throughout the season if we can. I know people were very offended, Zach, that you would dare put your day job ahead of the Godcast. So how dare you, sir?
I'm trying to think if there was anything crazy I saw in the clubhouse post game that would make people be like, "Oh, well, yeah, good thing you were there." No, there wasn't.
Well, we'll recap every painful moment of Zach in the clubhouse, and maybe also talk some about just the sights and sounds coming up at Patreon tomorrow. So if you're there, we'll see you then. And if not, we'll catch you next week back here at YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you catch your podcasts. See you later, everybody. Guardians win 7-4 in Kansas City. Opening day, 162-0. Here they come.